Wow, wow, wow. This is something that has gone relatively uncovered. Last week, Ubisoft CEO Yves Guillermo, I don't know. I need to learn. I don't mispronounce it on purpose, so my apologies if we'll just call him Guillermo. Basically came out and admitted, hey, we make uninteresting, unoriginal, boring games, and you're not buying them. So I guess we'll begrudgingly make a change. This came to fruition after realizing that, at least according to Ubisoft and its investors, the Division 2, Tom Clancy's The Division 2, was a financial failure, which was kind of surprising to me. But more importantly, Ghost Recon Breakpoint was a financial disaster. Nobody bought that game, and the people that did are feeling completely alienated by the fact that it's a copy pasta of all their other games, and it's got pay-to-win mechanics, and it's got all sorts of other egregious microtransactions in it. And, well, we are sick of it. The consumers have finally had enough, and I couldn't be more proud of all of you for not buying bad games. I get what it's like to just continually buy the new game over and over again. I did it for years with Madden, MLB 2K, all the sports games. I finally kind of got off that treadmill this year, except I'm playing Madden because it came with Origin anyway, but I wouldn't have purchased it outright for $60, as all they do is do the absolute bare minimum every year to get you to give them another $60, $80, or $100 and get you on their microtransaction treadmill. But the CEO came out to say, we don't have any pay-to-win elements in our game. And while that might be true, given it's single player, it's one of those things that you just never know. We always talk about the slippery slope that is these time saver microtransactions, because you don't know how much extra grind the developer puts into the game in order to entice you to buy these level boosters or buy these time savers. Let's be honest. If the game was balanced and progression was balanced fairly up front, you wouldn't need to push time savers. Maybe there's a percentage of people that will always buy it, and that's probably fair to say, but this is the problem. You never know. On today's call with investors, Guillermo was asked if he was, quote, concerned that gamers are beginning to rebel against more aggressive monetization in games. He replied that Ubisoft gains in live service revenue over the last few years are not linked to any aggressive increases in microtransactions. Rather, improved revenues from existing games can be attributed to overall rise in player engagement and Ubisoft's dedication to updating its live service games regularly. He goes on to say, when we were able to create events that bring people to stay longer in games, they are spending money in our games from time to time. What we consider is that bringing a high quality experience, we can increase the revenue per game, knowing that this is because we created more content on a regular basis. In the case of Ghost Recon, our philosophy is for the player to play the full game 100% without having to spend any money. We have no pay-to-win elements in our games, and what we can say is this is the philosophy we have for all of our games. But it has to be linked to more events, more content for players to play longer. This is a dicey answer because time savers may not technically be pay to win, but it's pay to play the game you should have been able to play in the first place. I don't know how else to describe it. I'm always skeptical of these pay to have these convenience type features, because it just leaves you up to one of two options. Either you believe that a multi-billion-dollar corporation is just putting these things in as a nicety, or you believe that a multi-billion-dollar corporation has done the math and figured out exactly how grindy they have to make a game to entice their whales to purchase time savers. Only one of these two statements can be true. Now, yesterday actually, Ubisoft released their earnings report, and yowza! Operating income down 94%. Ubisoft reports first half 2019-2020 sales and earnings figures performance led by a solid back catalog. That's not a good sign when you're touting your back catalog and not your new titles. Assassin's Creed Odyssey The second quarter saw further acceleration in an already very sharp increase delivered in the first quarter in terms of daily player engagement and sell-through compared to Assassin's Creed Origins, Rainbow Six Siege. Record high MAUs, and again, MAUs is a industry term. And then you have higher PRI in quarter one versus quarter two, over 50 million registered players. That's a lot. 27% increase in esports hours viewed for Rainbow Six Major Raleigh. Strong growth for PC, led notably by Uplay. Operating income affected by impairment charges recorded for Ghost Recon Breakpoint. Now, if you look at some of these other numbers, you can read through. This is all a public type statement, but everything is down. Everything. 94%. Third quarter outlook. Net bookings for third quarter 2019-2020 are expected to come in at around $410 million, down approximately 32% compared with third quarter of last year. Full year, as announced on October 24th, this is when they had their warning call for investors. The company is now expecting net bookings of approximately $1.45 billion for the full year of 1920 and non-IFRS operating income of between $20 million and $50 million. Ubisoft targeting net bookings approximately $2.6 billion and non-IFRS operating income of around $600 million. This is why I don't believe these companies. Now, they've acquired stake in Green Panda Games. They've done all sorts of other things to increase their reach. But at the end of the day, Ubisoft's original package titles have been failing because they have not been innovating. The only person to cover this thus far is Paul Tassi at Forbes. Ubisoft reports operating income down 93% as multiple game delays loom. Ubisoft surprised observers last week when they announced that they would be delaying pretty much their entire slate of upcoming games. Watch Dogs Legion, Gods and Monsters, and Rainbow Six Quarantine, joining an already delayed Skull and Bones. All will now either arrive in the back half of 2020 or early 2021. Essentially, having your CEO come in and say, look, we've been assembly lining these games, throwing them out, expecting everyone to buy them up until this point. And it's clear to me that by delaying these games, they had changed nothing. Imagine that. We put out uninnovative, unmemorable games. People don't buy them. Why change? And just assuming that people are going to keep buying them. If they had changed things 5 years ago, they wouldn't be delaying Watch Dogs, Gods and Monsters, Rainbow Six Quarantine, and Skull and Bones. It's clear that they did the absolute bare minimum for these games too. Now, I will give them credit for recognizing this and understanding that, look, we've got to go back to the drawing board. Now, if you look at Ubisoft in general over the past 1 month, it traded as high as $14 a share. The day they announced that their earnings would be awful, they completely plummeted here from $12.40 down to $10.30. And then they've basically made a comeback, even today, announcing that their earnings are off. Hasn't really adjusted any of their trading. Now, I'm guessing that investors already knew that things were bad for Ubisoft, but when you're still talking about making billions of dollars, what's there not to love as an investor who cares nothing about return on investment? The reason Ubisoft gave was because he wanted to make sure that each title lived up to its potential. This is of the delay. And they seem particularly jarred by the overt failure of their, quote, big fall game Ghost Recon Breakpoint, which dramatically underperformed both their financial and critical expectations. So on top of not selling, it was universally panned by critics. Today, Ubisoft is reporting their first half of 2019-2020 earnings, and the headline read that they're being led by a strong back catalog, which should give you some indications on how things went this period. They tout record players in Rainbow Six Siege, its never-ending success story, and solid numbers for Assassin's Creed Odyssey well after launch. In their entire 13-page laundry list of facts and figures, there is no mention of The Division 2 or its attempts at ongoing monetization. Ghost Recon Breakpoint is highlighted only as an explanation for operating income impairment. What a funny word to use. You aren't not making money, you're impaired. which is down 93.8% year over year. Net bookings are down 11.4% over the same period, with Q2 sales down 9% over the last year. Ubisoft is predicting a rather vacant Q3 as well, as it does not have any major releases besides Ghost Recon Breakpoint in early October, and then other things like Stadia versus Assassin's Creed Odyssey, or free content updates like The Division's Last Castle expansion. As such, Ubisoft is forecasting Q3 income to be down 32% over last year, and with all the upcoming delays, expect the following few quarters to be similarly empty, with nothing truly major launching until the second half of next year. Previously, Ubisoft had been praised for numbers of success stories, including the miraculous endless growth of Rainbow Six Siege, the revitalization of Assassin's Creed franchise with Origins and Odyssey, but they're still trying to ride the successes today, with newer entries making less of a splash. The Division 2 was fine, but has not cultivated explosive sales and sprawling fan bases that rival loot shooters like Destiny and Borderlands. Ghost Recon Breakpoint was always a bad call for a signature fall release, as it was a sequel that no one was asking for, with no real improvements over Wildlands or even changes for the worse in many aspects. Now, I don't know. It's hard to say. I actually enjoyed Tom Clancy's The Division 2. I enjoyed it greatly. I thought, other than the bullet sponge thing, it was a fun little co-op I could play with my friend. Now, is it worth $60? No, not many games these days are. It's unclear where Ubisoft goes immediately from here when the slate of upcoming releases arrive after the delays. Gods and Monsters is an untested IP. Rainbow Six Quarantine is an interesting idea, but there's no reason to assume it will emulate Siege's success. Watch Dogs has always been a franchise on knife's edge for Ubisoft, and there's some concerns that Legion's central play-as-anyone concept could fall flat. At this point, I feel like we've been talking about Skull and Bones so long, that will frankly be amazing if it ever comes out, and it's only half the pirate game of Assassin's Creed. Black Flag fans wanted in the first place. There's supposedly 2 more AAA games coming out in 2020-21 in fiscal year, presumably Assassin's Creed and Far Cry, although there's no details are known about either yet. A new Far Cry game would be amazing, but again, just like Ubisoft is noticing with these previous titles, if they don't do something dramatic to change the game, there's not a lot going on there. I felt like Far Cry, the mini expansion for Far Cry 5 was a lot of fun and worth $20, but that was it. It's not raining money down on top of them, and they did employ some pretty gross microtransactions in that game as well. Ubisoft is spitting it all positively, though. Still sees a bright future. More to come for now, but there'll be a lot of silence from Ubisoft for a while. And all I can say is I hope that they go back to the drawing board and that they look at this, because it's still a net win for gamers and lovers of the franchises like Assassin's Creed and Far Cry if they get it right. They've got to get it right. They've got to stop shoveling the same garbage down gamers' throats, because we finally turned against them and people just aren't buying it, and I couldn't be prouder. Hope you enjoyed this video. We'll talk to you again real soon.